Hello, hello, gorgeous NFA Money Mamas. It's time for a biz breakdown session on the Woman Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm so excited for our session today because I have a big rock star podcast host on, and her name is Lori Lee. She is the host of the Love Your Story podcast, and she knows how to draw out of people awesome stories. and really a cool podcast. So excited to have you on today to talk about the next evolution of your business.
Yay, Dr. Amanda. Let's go. Teach me, school me.
I know we were teasing before. She's like, you're schooling people here. I'm like, kind of. Yes, in the best way possible. Yeah, this question is the one I like to start with. If I could give you a magic wand and you could create whatever you want in this next evolution of your business, because I know that's where you're at right now, what would it be?
You totally should have given me this question ahead of time, so I could have prepped. The next evolution of my business that I want to talk about is expanding into providing hosting services for other podcasts, or people who need a podcast but don't have the time or the expertise, don't want to deal with it. Their business would benefit from it, but they don't want to do it. So they hire me to do it, and I host and produce it for them. So my vision for that magic wand would be to consistently have maybe 4 good clients at a time.
Okay.
That would roll through with their packages. The packages are broken down into seasons. So 8 or 12 episode seasons. And yeah, if I had 4 of those that I was continuously working with, that would be great. Ideal.
Awesome. And this is something that is in the very beginning stages of your thinking. Okay. Yep. And will you share, zone of genius wise, why you're pivoting in that direction or expanding in that direction, let's say?
Absolutely. So the Love Your Story podcast, we are going on our 7th year and, hundreds of episodes, and it's been fantastic. And, in the whole realm of podcasting and monetizing podcasting, everybody's always talking about, coaching. There's a million coaches out there that want to share what they're doing. And there's, you give away the lead magnet and you sign them up for your courses and all of the things. And as I've done that and struggled with them over the years, it hasn't really been a sweet spot. I don't want to coach anybody. I have a master's degree in folklore, and all my research is in personal narrative. And I have 20 years of journalism experience. So all of that has just come together so beautifully that hosting podcasts, being on the air, the production of them, because I'm an extremely organized person, like it really ends up being the sweet spot. And it's taken me this long to realize that was the sweet spot. I didn't want to coach. I didn't want to have to shuffle all of these other things. I love producing my show, but I've also got the skill and the comfort level with being able to do that for other people. And not everybody wants to do their own show, even though they could benefit from it. So this is a really exciting thing for me to branch into, because it is a zone of genius spot, instead of me trying to force something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Something you said you said many important things. And one, you used that word struggled, like as you struggled to get lead magnets out there and grow in the one-on-one way, and then experimenting with it a little bit and noticing it wasn't working for you.
Mm-hmm.
First, I want to say that's so important. And most people overlook that. Like, we listen a lot to what other people tell us to do in the coaching world or in the business scaling world. And there are so many ideas out there. And so I often notice what happens is, like, you go, oh, well, but this person's being successful in this way, and this is what I'm supposed to do. And then what happens, exactly like you're saying, there's a struggle and it doesn't ever evolve into expansion, and you can't scale because you're not magnetic, because you're not doing things you enjoy. And so, you realizing that is huge. First, I want to say that. Second, I think it's interesting that you're talking about, having a master's in folklore and then that 20 years in journalism, and it turns out looking different than you thought. We
totally
talk about that a little bit for people, because I know that a lot of women get stuck here in their businesses where we go, but I went this route and I've put so much money into this, that sunk cost fallacy, thinking like, well, I have to go this direction because I've already put time, energy, money, and it's my area of expertise. And instead, it sounds like you're really branching out in new ways, still using those skills and all your experiences over the last 7 years of having a podcast. So we just talk about that part a little bit, because I think that's really important.
You know, I don't know how much I'm branching out from that. That stuck cost fallacy, actually, I can relate to that, because part of it is having done 7 years of this podcast, like I've never monetized it. I've always just, it's been my give back to the world, and I've enjoyed it. And I've met incredible people and made great contacts and really honed in on my skill set as a podcast host. So I've gotten things, but they haven't necessarily been, a monetary cash flow. So part of my mindset, if I'm really honest, is, yeah, what else do I, how else do I get to monetize all of this stuff that I put into it, the accumulation of education and experience and money that I've dumped into the show, and like, where's that go next? So I was actually really excited when this idea popped up at PodFest this year of providing hosting services. I just hadn't thought of it before. And it was such a sweet spot when I started thinking about it. And you hit that sweet spot when you get excited about it, when it's not like, oh shit, I gotta do that. Like, it's not that. It's, ooh, yeah, I want to do that. That would be fun. Let's get together and plan your show. Let's talk about what you want it to look like and how you want it to feel. And then I'm going to make you a really badass show. Like, that sounds exciting and fun. So yeah, but some of that cost analysis of, how do I get more out of this investment? That's still a part of it for me.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yes. Okay. And so I want to say, I think sometimes people think when they're pivoting like that, they haven't a mindset around it, like I'm giving up on something, instead of thinking about it the way you are, which is I'm expanding, and in the sweet spot you're expanding, which I think is really, really cool. And I love that you noticed that, and that you all of a sudden thought, I have a new idea. And pay attention to this, everyone. This is really important. She said it felt good. She said it was the sweet spot. It didn't cause fear. It was like, instead, it sounds like you started to have expansive ideas and brainstorms around it.
Isn't that fun? That doesn't happen all that often. I mean, to have gone 7 years and it's taken me this long to find it. But that's the process, right? You don't get really good at something by doing it for a month. You get good at something by doing it sometimes over years. And if that's the path, that's the path.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Will you share a little bit there? I'm curious. Like, I would like to dig in just a little bit about, because 7 years is a long time to do something that wasn't monetized. Like, I'm impressed actually by the stamina you have, because I think a lot of people would give up. When you started the podcast, was it always for you in your mind a passion project, or was it like at some point I want to monetize this?
I intended to monetize.
Okay.
And so I've had to shift mindset a number of times. I've had to go to the see, you can help me with this, because this is where money comes in. So often we equate value or the worth of something, our time, whatever it is, with whether or not we're making money. So there have been numerous times where I've had to shift and make those lists of, what do I get out of this show besides money? Because all of the types of, like, I tried putting coaching as available for a while. And then every time there was a coaching client, I would get really scared. Can't help them, like it wasn't the comfortable place for me. And so, and I did a course, and all of the people who got through the 21 Life Connection challenges, there were some great groups and they loved it, but I'd have to keep getting on Facebook and doing like big marketing pushes, and I'm not a salesperson. I'm a creator, right? Like, I narrowed down so many things about myself over those years of trying things and them not working, and me simply saying, it's not worth it for me to get on and have to do a song and dance to get, like, I don't need people to pay attention to me that way. That's not what I want to spend my time doing. So it was a process of elimination. And finally, I just got to the point where it was like, I make incredible connections with neat people. Like, I have Olympians on. I have people who take me to some of their most sacred, tragic places as they tell their stories on the Love Your Story podcast. Influencers and authors, and just amazing stories that are on there. So I get a lot, like I get that association, and that's wonderful. I get to practice my journalism techniques, which I have honed, and that's very satisfying. I'm a professional writer and I get to do that. When I do a content-based episode, I get to write that. I get speaking opportunities, and I've written a book. And so there's lots of stretching, and there's lots of things I get out of it. And over the years, I've had to switch from, I'm getting value out of this in other ways than monetizing it, because any of the monetization techniques I've used aren't really like gelling for me. So now what? So that's why it's really fun right now to get this new hosting and production space honed in on.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
does that make sense? So
Totally.
it's been a journey with lots of side roads.
It has. And something I want to point out to you that's so yelling at me right now. Like I always get these, I don't know what to call them. It's like downloads or something. It's like, okay, it's so clear that you are in your zone of genius when you're creating your show. And I think that's so important for people to listen to, because now what you're doing is, instead of forcing yourself into the box of, let's say, coaching or creating courses that didn't really connect with you, now you're creating the love of creation of the podcast production to help other people. And that's why it seems seamless. And you said so many times I couldn't count. I stopped writing it down. I get to. And when you're in a space of I get to, that's where money magnetism happens. And that's where the magic happens, right? Yes. So you made it.
Yay.
And that's really awesome. And because, I want to remind everyone listening, if you are in your zone of genius doing what you love, that is when the money part of it drops away, meaning that you and I want to help you pivot here some, because what most people do is they think, I love this so much, I would do it for free. And we get stuck in that space for a long time, instead of saying to ourselves, I love this so much, it's the only thing I would do for money.
Right. And you know what? I don't even, at this point, I don't have to make that pivot, because either, like, I know the amount of time it takes. I know the amount of skill it takes. I know the hard work that it is. And at this point in my life, I'm not doing very much for free. Like I choose to do my show for free because, well, not for free, but it's a passion project, but it uses my skills. It's my give back. It gives me purpose and makes me feel, we all look for that place of, how do I create and make the world better, especially using my own talents and skills. So that holds a package for me that's worthwhile. But, I make good money in other areas of my life, and I get to choose, where do I spend my time in doing what. And I don't want to create podcasts for free. If I want to do that, I'll just focus on myself. But I know that I have a skill set that is worthy of being paid for, and I'd love to work with you to provide you a kick-ass podcast.
Yeah. Okay, I want to dig here a little bit. It's something. Sometimes I think that we make justifications when we're not able to figure something out. In your case, you have an incredible, you're a multi-passionate entrepreneur, let's say, and you've been a very successful businesswoman in other areas. And so sometimes when we take on another adventure in business and it doesn't succeed in the way we expected, we then can justify it through saying it's a passion project. And I just want to make sure that that's not operating for you, because I know that happens for people. And so, it's like, I want to break down.
Totally happening for me with my podcast. Not the new hosting stuff, but
the current.
I expected the podcast to earn money, like I said. So I tried all of those things. And finally I got to the point where I just had to say, this is more of a passion project. Like all those things I told you about, they weren't working, but there's all the other things, that list I gave you of the connections and the using my skills, all of that. But that connects to my passion. Does that make sense?
It does. Well, what I see is that we have this really amazing way, especially when we're smart like you, of justifying things in our brain. And it's actually a powerful strategy, because what you did was you flipped it away from like money being the value that we bring in, to seeing all the benefits of all the other things that your podcast does for you. And that's a really great strategy to use. Now we want to up level the value and benefit on making money. And I know that you're choosing to do it in a different way, but through podcasting. And so I think it's, I'm parsing this out, because I think for people who are listening, we do different avoidance strategies of seeing the thing that's stuck, and we will justify and we will minimize our desires, and we'll go like, oh, I don't really have to have it that way, when underneath all of that, really, we're like, yes, I want to be highly successful in everything I do, in every way that I want to be successful, money included, right?
So what do you think I'm minimizing?
I'm seeing it's like that. It's in my mind, I go like 7 years in. If you wanted to monetize, I think some of the questions might have been off. It's like, instead of going like, you tried a lot of different things, which I see this happen time and time again, right? We go like, I am dedicated and committed, and you've been successful in so many areas that it's like you're dedicated and committed at all costs. And then you go like, oh, but it's not working. It's not working. I'm not sure what to do. And so I keep pivoting my mindset around it. And then we go like, hey, let's ask the right questions. Like, how could I monetize my zone of genius? Who do I need to talk to help me monetize my zone of genius? And I think that we go on this discovery path, and that's where we go like, oh, it's about finding one-on-one clients. And then you get into it and you're like, crap, I don't enjoy that. It's making me feel, like you said, scared. And, and I was going to ask you too, it's like, what were you coaching clients about? And the reason I ask these things is because everyone listening has this exact same discovery path. Some people move through it really fast, and some people it takes years. And so it's like, I like to help you and listeners go like, ooh, how can I get there the fastest way possible? So I'm curious, like, what for you were you coaching? What was that first coaching?
Reframing stories, which is basically just what I told you I did.
Yeah.
Like one thing happens, and instead of looking at it and going, I suck, this is horrible, I'm a failure, I'm going to reframe that and look at what's going right and what I like about it. And that's where my focus is going to be. And really, Love Your Story is about learning the skills, learning the responsibility that we have, the power we have within our own story to create the life that we want on purpose. And that's always head work, always head work.
Yeah.
Because life is a mental game. It's the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves and about what's going on around us, for sure. And I'm working on it all the time too. I by no means like have it all dialed in and always do it right. So, if somebody says like you're just doing right now, let's look at that, how do we up level that thought? Great. I'm all for that. Let's see if something makes sense there. But really choosing to look at the other things I was getting from it that makes it feel successful to me versus just money. Because there's more that makes things more than money that can make something successful.
Yeah. Well, and I want to point out for everyone, because you have a successful business that brings you a full-time income, you can have that attitude about it right. So that's an interesting thing to think about too. Sometimes I think about the curse of the comfort zone, where, let's say I'm working with a corporate person and they want to switch into entrepreneurship or something outside of their comfort zone. They're really too damn comfortable. It's hard to shift when we're comfortable. So in some ways, it's like you've been able to create 7 years of a successful podcast that hasn't been powerfully monetized, let's say, because you've got another source of income that you created. And so you're clearly a very powerful person. So it's like, that's where we go like, ooh, is it possible for your brain to wrap around? And I know that you're doing that because it's your pivot here, is like, oh, I can be successful in this business and this business and this business and this business. Is there anywhere in you that, when I say that, feels stuck? Or do you feel like, heck yeah, I'm 100% ready to go?
What do you mean stuck?
Great question. Do you feel when I say, are you ready? What level do you want to take I know you said 3 to 4 clients. Do you have a long-term revenue goal?
So this is a great question. And it's interesting because I think oftentimes, especially when we're talking about money or business, that we are pushed to think big and I want 10 figures and, wow, let's do this. But I want peace. I want peace and satisfaction in my life. And that doesn't mean going 10,000 miles an hour. That means I want to be able to produce and spend the amount of time that I want producing. And that means that's where I come up with the 4 clients. I think that would keep me hopping. That would be, full-time trying to keep that many episodes organized and coordinated and interviews, prepped for and all of the things that would be full-time. But I'm not about, that's it. That's the ideal, because if I can maintain that and maintain like a list of people. Once somebody's season is finished, or their show has run its course, then there's somebody else in line to do that. Just the consistency and the peacefulness of great clients and great shows. That's the vision. So it's more the feeling around it than the,
Love it.
huge numbers.
Yeah. Okay. Everyone listening, Lori just dropped such a bomb of awesome wisdom. When you're setting up a goal, especially a manifestation-based goal, and you're building something in your business or a new part of your business or startup, you always want to reverse engineer from that exact thing she just said. What is the feeling you want to create, right? And if it's peace, you better reverse engineer something that's peaceful for you, and not reverse engineer something that's like pie in the sky, exactly like you're saying. Like sometimes it's a revenue goal for some people. Like when I was on food stamps, a revenue goal was really empowering to me. Once I wasn't on food stamps, it's been detrimental for me to set revenue-based goals, because I don't have to have the extra money now, right? It's like before it was survival. It was like that 6 figures is like, means so many things to me. Now, I've really learned as manifestation-based goal setting, you go like, how do I want to feel? What do I choose to experience? Especially for someone like you, who's in a position where you've had a business that's successful, and then you've had a podcast that's successful in many ways, right? And so now you go, if I'm going to take my precious time to add a layer to my life, it better be rewarding, right?
Well, and absolutely. And I want to do a really good job. Like, I'm not going to spend time doing something half-ass either. So, if you're my client, I'm going to take good care of you. I'm going to treat you well. And that may mean that I'm only working with, that's 3 or 4 clients that get a whole lot of attention all the time, and not so many clients that, you're missing things, and you're skipping out on not listening through all the edits and that type of thing. So yeah, I think it matters a lot.
Yeah, it does. Okay. So to me, like in this conversation, I've really gathered you are very energetically aligned for this next layer of your business. I don't like, as I'm asking you these questions, I'm like, I see lots of energetic alignment. Is there anywhere in your history that you've noticed money blocks for yourself that you bump up against in a patterned way? Is there anything that we need to clear there?
I would love it if you just do a whole bunch of magic and clear any money blocks.
Okay.
I'm afraid that I don't know what my money blocks are. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Like every time, just like, so all of the times we were talking about where I was trying to attract, abundance through the podcast, and none of them were really working. To me, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, is this me blocking it? Am I just not? And, like, I don't know. Why didn't those succeed? Is it just because it wasn't right? It wasn't aligning with my sweet spot? Was it because I had a mental block? But I don't know the answers to those questions, but I do know the power of mindset. And I do believe in creation and manifestation and those things. If you've got the right mindset for them, that's got to help. But I don't know what to clear away. I don't know what the blocks are. So
awesome.
I don't know how to answer that.
That can be my job.
Okay.
And I love what you're saying, because sometimes we're aware, we can go like, this thing keeps tripping me up. And then sometimes we go, I'm not sure what's tripping me up. It's dependent on the person. Something I can say is that I always know that when I'm working with people, that their outer world is a reflection of their inner world. So to me, if you've been running a podcast for 7 years mostly for free, there's a money block. And I would imagine that has to do with selling, over giving and undercharging, in that way of something about you having a block around selling your own services is challenging for you, because in your other business model, do you mind sharing like other stuff that you do to make income?
Real estate.
Okay. And so this is interesting, right? Because in real estate, you're selling something that doesn't feel like your product or service, right? It's like you're selling a house, like you're selling, like there's a tangible something that you're selling. And so people don't have as many blocks around that. I would equate it to, like, let's say that you've been in a company and you're making a paycheck and you're just killer at what you do. And then you step into entrepreneurship and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I don't know how to sell. And it feels terrifying to sell my services. Does that resonate at all?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's something there. What do you see yourself as valuable in terms of what Well, and this is interesting because you're just starting out in this new version. I imagine that you're going to be very quickly successful in this next version that you've come up with because you feel so much more aligned with it. Whereas before, when you were selling one-on-one coaching or challenges or things that weren't so aligned, it felt scary to you, which to me is always an indication of zone of genius. And we're always going to have a harder time selling something when we're not in our zone of genius because we have increased fear, doubt, uncertainty, not as much brainstorming. And so in this
let me ask you this though. Can I give you a specific example?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm the author of this book. It's called Life, Living Intentional and Fearless Every Day. And it's gorgeous. Like, it's full color. It's got all the 21 challenges in it. And I am 100%, like 100%. Like, I can support this. I can coach this. I can work this and do groups, and that feels awesome. Right. Okay. So I don't have any issues with that product. Right. Okay. What I think my issue might be is not so much the product or my expertise in it, but perhaps I don't like being front and center. Like, I don't like the marketing stuff. Like, when I do all of the work of, you know, how you do the career, you dissect as to what career you're supposed to be in, and you do all the specialization tests and what I'm supposed to be. And I have learned over the years that I'm a creator. I can come up with the ideas. I can create something fabulous. And then that thing sits there. You know, it sits there. I can write a book. I have 5 different books. Only one of them is self-published. The rest of them are published by publishers. And I can create that content. I can give that to the editor and they go out and publish it. They get it into the bookstores. They do all of that. That works for me, right? I'm on board with that. But when I have to get on Facebook and do Facebook Lives and, you know, try to come up with a YouTube channel and, you know, all of the things, like, I don't know if it's scary or if it's just so distasteful or if it's, I don't know, but that's where I drop the ball. I create things and then I don't market them.
Okay. So what makes you think that you have to get on Facebook and do lives? Like, what makes you think that that's a have to in terms of building a business?
How else do you let people know about what you're doing? Like, when you're in this realm that we are in here, which is podcasts and, you know, and coaching and all of those things, social media is the main vein. It just is. Okay. And I think we look also, as we take coaching and classes and go to workshops and conventions, we watch how the successful people have done it so that we can copy that. Like, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But then that leads us also to what you were talking about earlier, which is that we just follow everybody around, that there's certain things that are supposed to be done in certain ways that, you know, so there's that fine balance there of using your own mind, figuring out how does it sit with me? What does that mean moving forward? So I think,
I'll chime in.
Yeah.
Listen to what you did to sell your book successfully. So go down that. And then I want you to map the exact same thing onto your new business of getting clients for podcasting. So
what did you hear?
So what did you do to sell your books?
Which ones?
So you said, I'd say an overarching pattern. So you said you have 5 books. Mm-hmm. And you're great at creating them. And then what happens for them to go to market?
I let the publisher do that.
Right. So why wouldn't you let somebody find you clients for your new business instead of you thinking you have to do it?
Who does that?
There are lots of people. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
What is that?
So this is fascinating. I'm so glad you went through that, because you're right. This is where solopreneurs fail and struggle and feel like crap, because they're trying to do every single part and no one is good at all things.
That is so true.
Right?
So true.
And so look at how successful you've been at writing 5 books and getting it out there. You stand behind it firmly. You love it and you enjoy it. And every time you talk about the things you love, I can't wait for you to go back and listen to this episode, because you'll be like, oh my God, I can't wait. I'm good at this. Like, it's in your voice, even, it's like, you're powerful and you're confident. And then you go to this other part and you're like, you said, I have to get on Facebook and do lives, right? Anytime you're in a have to, it's not going to succeed, because you're doing things that you don't like, which causes resistance, which pushes money away.
which is totally true. Like
Right.
that's some wisdom there. And especially, I don't know if it works that way for everybody, if other people push through better than I do, but I can tell you, like, I don't even have to set goals at the beginning of the year. I can tell you which ones are going to get done and which ones aren't by gauging my internal resistance to them.
Yeah, exactly. Because the number one reason we don't manifest our goals is because of resistance. And so just listen to yourself. Anytime you're like, I have to, I want you to go like, where can I delegate that?
So what kind of person finds me clients?
A
What is that
person who's
career?
amazing at lead gen and loves to go out and sell your services, right? This is where I think solopreneurs really get stuck, is they think they've got to do it all alone, or even small business owners or entrepreneurs, whatever label we want to use. They go, and I see it time and time again. I'm really like tapping into this lately where I'm like, where is your genius and how can you outsource everything that's not involved with it as fast as possible? Because you won't succeed and you will burn out if you think you're going to do all aspects. Just like you just stated it so beautifully in looking at the book writing trajectory and getting it out in the world, right? So the reason that your podcast gets to be successful is because it's pure creation for you. Like you like it, you enjoy it. It's about creativity. That's your zone of genius, right? So you love being an inventor and a creator, and that's fun for you. The rest of it, same with me. If I had to come up with all of the parts of my business, I would never have made it. Someone asked me today, I was just in a meeting right before this, and she said, what was the first thing you outsourced? And I was like, 3 months into my business, I outsourced my podcast development. Because if I had to do all of that, like checking all of those boxes, I wouldn't like, I loved creating the podcast itself, but I didn't like uploading it and the description, and I can't stand all that stuff. And if I hadn't outsourced that, I would never be where I am today.
Interesting.
Right? So for you, you've got to detect those boxes. Okay, so what's the process of getting a project done? What are the parts that I just know I'm going to fail at? And where do I look for the right team to come in and do that part? Right?
Yes. Yes.
And so for me, one of the ways I did that was I had joint ventures. I would have people sell me, right? Like they sold me. I didn't have to sell myself. They sold me. And so it was like, I put my podcast out there. I did the podcasting. I did the one-on-one coaching. And then I would have my podcast team, at the time was a VA. She did an awesome job of getting stuff out there. And then I had a joint venture partnership who sent me nonstop clients because they really loved what I was doing. They took a cut of my one-on-one coaching and they sent me clients. I never had to think about getting a client ever. And it was awesome. And so that's what I'm recreating in my business right now. And so you want to start asking the right questions like, okay, where do I find the clients? Where's a referral network that I can find those clients without having to think about it? Because then you don't need to do the lives. I don't want you to ever do a damn live in your life if you don't like it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so maybe somebody on here listening is one of those lead generators or something.
Exactly.
Like if you are, reach out to me. If you know, like, so, I was taking notes the other day. Where are they? Trying, thinking of what kind of companies would benefit from a podcast. And it's companies who have like products that need to be explained, because we can do private podcasts. It doesn't have to be something for everybody. It might be like a construction company or beauty services, like laser work, or that type of thing, where they have
be a
information.
Company podcast, right? You could do a podcast for your company. Yeah.
Or just information they want to get to very specific clients, and they can just send them a link, right? And it's got, these are the things you need to know. And so it's an accumulation of data that is there for them to disseminate as they want to their people. Or, you could do the same thing with construction. You're doing a new build and you're onboarding like new clients and buyers. You could, doctors, if you're into plastic surgery and you want to have information that you disseminate or things you want to tell and talk about with your clients. But anyway, so there's so many options out there. But if I could find, that would be beautiful to find somebody who knew that and could source those. And that would be a great partnership.
There you go. That's awesome. And Lori, I want to point out how many ideas you just came up with. Write all those down and make it. And here, this is going to sound weird, but how would it feel for you, instead of doing a Facebook Live and posting all that and scheduling all of it and getting people there, to make a cold call to a company that you think would benefit from a podcast? Like, would you enjoy that more?
No.
Okay.
I don't like sales. But
okay, so then that's awesome. Know that about yourself and then be looking like, so, and here's the thing with manifesting that's really cool. You get clear on what you desire, you take a step in the direction, and the universe brings you opportunities that you can't foresee or plan for, right? And so right
okay,
now,
say that again. I'm writing it down. Get
so
clear.
yep, 3-step. This is the NFA 3-step manifestation formula. You're like, get clear on exactly what you desire. So it's about certainty and clarity about what you desire. Take the first step in the direction, and then let the universe bring you the opportunities that you could never plan for or create yourself. And they're not going to be things you expect. So here's an example. In the exact process I did, I knew, I was like, from day one, my first goal was like 6-figure business. And then since then, it's been impact 5 million people through NFA money and through all the offerings that I have, right? And that's been clear for me. I take steps, and the universe brings me nonstop opportunities that are never things that I planned for, or never things that I thought I just wouldn't have been able to plan them, right? And it's like the clarity is the piece that's so incredibly important. When anytime we hear ourselves saying, I have to do this because somewhere in your mind, it's what you were told you were supposed to do, or you just compared yourself to someone in the industry and you thought you had to do it. If you hear yourself saying have to, that is a place where you need to delegate, or drop that thought that it's necessary at all. Right. Sometimes I always tell people it's a drop, automate, delegate. Anytime you have a have to, it's drop, automate, delegate. So some things we can't drop, some things we can, and they're just non-essential things. I have an example here too. I'm creating like another part of my business, and it's like another segment of something I love to do that's with corporations and associations and small business owners. And it's because I work a lot with entrepreneurs on my NFA money side. In this other business, I'm like, I'm not doing one damn piece of social media. Like, like it's going to be super simple. I have the lead generation strategy, and I just get to live in my zone of genius, right? On my NFA money side, I'm like, I'm training. I have a full-time VA. I have my husband who is an ops person. And I'm like, any team member I bring on, I've got like ads, I've got different people that I delegate to, because if I had to do the things that was every part, I would hate my business and I wouldn't be magnetic at all.
No,
right?
That's brilliant. Okay, here's my money issue. You want to deal with a money issue?
Yes.
This is where I fall short. I am so frugal that when it comes to hiring somebody or delegating, it is so hard for me to spend money.
Yes, you got it. I love it. I love that this conversation led you to know that, because that's where people freak out about delegation.
Well,
right?
I have noted it many times, but I'm glad it came up in the conversation, because truly that is my biggest block. I think, I don't know what I think. It's just, it's expensive to hire people. And maybe it's because it's not making money. I don't know, but it's also, it's where I come up with the idea. It's why I don't like the marketing. Like, I can come up with this idea, build this beautiful thing. And then I'm like,
but
won't put the money into marketing it.
Yeah. And then it doesn't get legs and it doesn't get off the ground, and nothing happens. Yeah. Okay. So then you've actually got to reframe your thinking there from it's expensive to hire people to it's expensive not to get my ideas out there. Right? Like, it's actually costing you a ton of money to not get your ideas out there, which is why it's so important to hire a marketing person. And be conscious too of who you're hiring, because marketing and sales conversion are two different things, right? Marketing is getting the news and the information, the content out there. Sales conversions is different. And so, you want to think about those things as you're outlining and designing this business, right? And so for everyone listening, it's like, if you go like, oh my God, I'm frugal and I don't want to delegate, you got to start to see the unconscious part of that that's causing you to believe that it's expensive to delegate. For me, I look at delegation as a huge gift where I get to get paid the most money possible in my zone of genius.
Okay, so here's what makes me nervous about delegating. If I knew that the person I was hiring was really good at what they were going to do and they were going to work out, it would be so much easier to do it. But I feel like every time, whether it's a VA or a coach or whatever it is, I feel like I have to do so much research to make sure that the investment is worthwhile, and I don't want to throw money away. So it's like that's where the hookup comes, because I can even be like, okay, I've got that much money, I'll put it toward it. But
so why don't you
what if I can't find the right person?
Why don't you trust yourself to find the right person? Where have you been burned before?
I hired a coach once that did not turn out to be a good fit, and she basically just took all my money and ran.
Okay.
I've hired people that I have a high level of production and a reasonable sense of like graphic balance and clarity, that type of thing. So when I work with a graphic artist, I have worked with people who were fantastic. Like they took pride in their work. They wouldn't send me something unless it was done. And there were almost never any back and forth. And then I've worked with other people who will send me the first piece of crap they can come up with. And then I make them go back and forth, and it just becomes not worth the struggle to work with them anymore.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, and that's just the nature, right? Like everybody's not going to be perfect. And I don't
Yeah.
know. That's it. I don't know anything else to say about it, except that I am aware that I am tentative about spending money. And one of those issues is that I'm not sure about finding the right person.
Okay. Okay. So anytime we have like a money trauma happen like that, where we beat ourselves up for spending money in ways that we don't think was lucrative, we're going to get more and more frugal, especially if we're already blocked in that way. And so, keep in mind that part. I would, if it were me in your situation, I would think who in my life is the best person I know currently at discerning, at making a good decision around hires or around buying a car, anything where you're like, that person seems to always have good judgment, and start bouncing ideas off of them. This could be a coach, this could be a friend, this could be a partner, this could be people in your life. I would, gear towards someone who's business minded, but this is where you've got to have some bouncing off of ideas of like, is this a good fit for me? Because we all make, I don't like to think of the word mistakes as, I think you and I think similarly about this. It's like we always learn from our mistakes. So is it really a mistake? And if you, instead of learning from it, instead you let that imprint on you as that you did something bad or wrong, it's going to keep playing out. And the interesting thing is that it's going to continue to block money from you, from clients, because clients are going to have the exact same doubt that you're having. They're going to go, is Lori worth it? Or am I just paying a whole bunch of money and I'm not going to get the results I want? Right? So what happens is whenever we have a fear, we project it out into the world and we attract it back to us. So if we're frugal, we're going to attract frugal people, which is why you've had a hard time making money in your business.
You think that's true?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. Whatever you feel consciously or unconsciously is what you magnetize your way. So if you're afraid of spending money on experts, people are going to be afraid of spending money on you.
Well, that just undercuts it from the beginning then.
Yeah. So that's why it's so important to clear out those blocks.
So how do you clear that one out?
Start playing with, first, I would start with a benefits list. Like, what are the benefits you gained from all of those perceived mistakes you made in hiring people in the past? So, because you're only conscious right now of the things that you feel like you did wrong, which is causing you to be frugal, right? Where you're like, I made a mistake. I didn't hire the right person. I'm not sure who to hire. So you've got to balance it out and go like, everything is equal. It's benefits and drawbacks. So where you're only seeing the drawbacks. So you got to start seeing the benefits so that you can balance out your feeling around that, and then start to be able to have decharged decision making when you're going to hire someone. And that will cause people to come to you who have balanced perspectives when they're hiring you. Does that make sense?
That's hard to wrap my head around.
Yeah, I know. I saw the processing. It is a lot. But here's the thing. You always want to remember everything is energy. So anywhere you have an unconscious block, and actually you're even conscious of this, you're like, I'm frugal when I hire people, right? And so now you get to play with like, how am I going to decharge that? Have you ever done tapping before? Like EFT tapping?
I'm aware of it, but I'm not
Okay.
completely sold that it's legit. Should I tap something?
Yeah, I'd play with this. I would just, let's just try karate chop point. So this is for anyone listening, the like the fatty part of the outside of your non-dominant hand, you're going to tap with your dominant hand. And as you tap, you're just going to say, like, even though I made money mistakes in the past, you can say it out loud after me, Lori.
Even though I made money mistakes in the past,
I still deeply and profoundly love myself.
I still deeply and profoundly love myself.
Even though I'm afraid to spend money on my business,
even though I'm afraid to spend money on my business,
I'm willing to see if I can be good at it.
I'm willing to see if I can be good at it.
Even though I'm not sure who to delegate to,
even though I'm not sure who to delegate to.
I bet I can figure it out.
I bet I can figure it out.
Okay, so we'll just start there and just, how does that feel? Do you feel anything?
How does this do anything?
Yeah, so it's really wild. I've been playing with tapping a lot, and I started tapping daily about 3 weeks ago. I've had like the most mind-blowing stuff happen in my world. I'm just like,
Really?
holy moly. Here's what it is. We have unconscious emotions attached to our money history, any history for that matter. And what happens is that when you say these things out loud, you bring them to the conscious awareness instead of avoiding them. And remember what I said with magnetism, you are always magnetizing your way what you consciously and unconsciously feel. And so when you're tapping, what most people teach is like, even like, let's say people could misread this when I teach affirmantras in my book. It's like, hey, focus on this. The thing is, if you have a whole bunch of stuck energy and stuck emotions around it, you're actually creating resistance when you say a positive affirmantra or affirmation. And so what you want to do first is clear out the negative emotions around it. But most people don't know how, but it's so much easier than you think. All you've got to do is say the shit that scares you. Right?
Okay. When we were doing the tapping, what were the last two that you said? I want to write
Oh man, I'd have to go back and rewind because I was just make it up on the fly.
Okay.
So I typically, when I'm doing it, and you can say whatever you need. So it'd be like, even though I don't know if I trust myself in making delegation decisions, I deeply and profoundly love myself. And so it's this idea of like, even like admitting you're scared is huge, right? Because what happens now is your energy can start to change. And EFT tapping, if we went through the whole rounds, it's getting your meridians energetically aligned by releasing unconscious emotional blocks. So it's called emotional freedom technique. And here's the thing that is really powerful is that your emotions are what magnetize. And so if you've got emotions that you're pretending aren't there, it doesn't matter if you pretend they're not there. The universe still reads them. Right? And so like you want to like bring them to the surface to shift the energy and to remove those unconscious blocks and start playing with, I love affirmantras because it starts at least moving in the right direction to a possibility. And I teach them very specifically, again, to be aligned so that you're not telling yourself stuff that's not true. Because anytime you tell yourself stuff that's not true, you're creating resistance. And so, tapping is just a really cool strategy. I've been playing with this and I'm like, oh, I'm having so much fun with my clients because it's like,
is this the best place to tap? Like, why aren't you tapping here?
It's the easiest one. You can wherever.
Does it matter
for you? You could tap wherever you're feeling stuck at tension right now. There's a specific round that you do, and we don't have enough time to teach it today. But there is a specific round that you can do. But what I love about it is like just play with it. Like if you feel like tapping on your collarbone or your chest, like for me, my tension gets held a lot in my chest. And so I'll breathe and I'll tap on my chest just in different areas. And I'll just be like, oh my God, I feel so freaked out right now. You don't even have to say that statement I said of the even though, and you can just go like, oh my God, I feel so freaked out right now. I don't even know what's wrong with me. Why do I feel this way? Please just release the unconscious blocks. And I just make it up on the fly. Like there's no like script or anything, so it's like play with it and see what happens. But I would focus on the frugal piece. Like, okay, I've made a mistake. I'm scared of hiring people. And yet that is the number one thing that's going to help you be successful in this next round of your business. Because you're right. If you think that you have to do all the marketing crap that you hate, you're already stopping and limiting your success right before you even start.
And I love that too, because it feels so freeing. I love the idea of hiring somebody to do that.
Yes.
I wish that had a name, like that type of person had a name.
I would love to help you strategize around that. Like this is something I'm brilliant at, is coming up with ideas and strategies and connections and helping people find the right. It's like, this is my genius, right? It's like, oh, let's break it down for you in a step-by-step way. And then like, boom, let's get the right connections going. And in a lot of ways, it's not even, you don't need to figure it out either, which I want you to remember. It's like, it will come to you. When you're aligned energetically, someone will email you. I'll be shocked if in the next few days you don't get an email from somebody that says like, hey, I'm great at lead gen. Like,
awesome.
It happens to me all the time.
Really?
Like when I get clear, I get the coolest opportunities where I'm like, holy moly, this manifestation stuff works well. Yeah.
Okay. So you said I don't have to force it to happen.
Yeah. And so everyone listening, remember these things. Like, we force way too much. And the reason we force is because when we think we have a plan, we think that that's what's making things happen. When in reality, it's actually your resistance is pushing things away. Your forcing is pushing things away. It's when you surrender and let go and trust and just get really crystal clear on the direction you're choosing to go, release any blocks to it, and take action, you're going to start to have shifts. And so, like, I'm always playing with like, what's the best, fastest strategy to help you get there and unblock those parts of yourself and just like like energetically align, because then you just attract opportunities your way. You don't even have to do any work.
That's really big stuff. I hope it's true.
Yes. It is, I promise you, with 100% certainty, because it's universal laws. It's not me making this stuff up. It's like you're following universal principles of quantum physics.
Perfect. Well, if there's any lead generators out there, my email is lorrijlee@msn.com.
Nice. I love it. Look at you manifesting already. Exactly. But that's perfect. So I want you, and we're going to wrap up, but this is your action step. I usually ask people, so what's your action step from what we talked about? I have a specific one for you. Write down a brainstorming list of everyone you can think of who could be a good resource to find that right person.
Okay.
And just start playing with that first, because that's your stuck point. You already know what you're good at. You're already excited about your business. Now the stuck point is like, oh, you think you've got to do all this awful stuff that you don't want to do to get it out there. And I mean, you're only looking for 3 to 4 people. You don't need a big, massive campaign at all. You need a couple of good referral connections. That's it.
Absolutely. Okay. Done. Will do.
Awesome. I love it. Okay.
Thank you.
Share with everyone where they can find you.
Love Your Story podcast website, www.loveyourstorypodcast.com. And of course, the Love Your Story podcast is on every podcast app. And truly, if you want to reach out to me, the email is Lori, LORIJLEE @msn.com. So that's easy too.
Awesome. And I'd say by the time this is released, you probably will have an awesome person. So if you're going to email her, it's to email her because you're ready for her to take over your podcast or help you start your podcast and be the host and the producer for it. So by the time this is released, that'll be happening. I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, and reach out, because we can talk about it too. We can talk about what you have in mind and what it looks like, and we'll go through and see if it's a good fit for you.
That's awesome.
That's a process.
I already have someone for you. I have someone in mind for you. So see, there you go. You don't even need a marketing person.
You've been fabulous today. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Really, thank you for coming on. I so appreciate you, Lori, and the women listening, and all the people that get to come on and hang out with me, because like, this is where I get to shine in my zone of genius. So it's a huge win for me. It's a win for the biz breakdown session people that come on, and it's a win for the listeners. So it's like, this is what I love. I mean, I think you all can tell because I'm just like so fired up and I could keep going all day long. So thank you for being here. Until next time, I'm sending you big, big hugs and NFA money making high fives.